7. Evident signs that there is an evil person next to you. Have you ever felt something is off about someone around you, but you can't quite name it? Someone who always smiles at you, says kind things, sometimes even seems to care about you, but somehow, after every interaction, you feel more drained, confused, and lost? You start doubting yourself. Am I being too sensitive? Am I unfairly judging this person? Or is your intuition screaming, but you're ignoring it because you want to believe in the good? I've been there. And if you're watching this video, chances are you're there too. A hard truth to face. In life, evil doesn't always come in scary movie shapes. It doesn't need to scream, rebel, or be destructive. Sometimes evil is a quiet presence that destroys, enters your life through trust, stays through manipulation, and slowly drains your energy, bit by bit. An evil person isn't always the one stabbing you in the back. They can be the one right next to you, smiling, advising, making you believe they're the only one who truly gets you. But underneath it all, they make you smaller, weaker, and disconnected from your true self. I was once trapped in a relationship like that. A friend who was very smooth with words and appeared moral and kind. He always gave me advice, showed up when I struggled, and said, "I just want what's best for you." But over time, I started feeling like I couldn't make decisions on my own. I asked for his opinion on everything. I felt scared without his approval. I felt guilty when I didn't follow his advice, even when my intuition told me something was off. And then I realized I wasn't myself anymore. That's when I started learning about manipulation, subtle control, and especially what Stoic philosophy says about self-mastery, personal boundaries, and the difference between kindness and exploitation. Here's what I want to share with you. In this video, I'll show you 7 clear signs, not vague, not emotional, but signs that, once you see them, you can't unsee. Because the truth is, evil people only control you when you don't recognize who they are. Once you become aware, you are no longer a victim. You reclaim control of your mind, your emotions, and your energy. Stoic philosophy doesn't tell you to become suspicious. Marcus Aurelius reminded us, a strong mind looks at actions, not words. So if someone makes you feel exhausted, makes you doubt yourself, makes you shrink, then maybe, just maybe, you're standing next to someone untrustworthy, perhaps even someone with dark intentions. You don't need to get angry. You don't need to confront them. You need to see, and from there, protect your peace with clear boundaries and firm inner resolve. Let's move into the next part. The first sign, an evil person drains your energy and makes you doubt yourself. Sign number 1, they quietly drain your energy and make you doubt yourself. Have you ever felt this way? You spend time talking, hanging out, or working with someone, and afterwards you feel exhausted even though you didn't do anything physically tiring. You don't feel happy. You don't feel inspired. Instead, a heavy fog settles over your mind. A vague anxiety, a feeling that something's off but you can't quite name it. That is one of the most subtle and also one of the most dangerous signs. An evil person slowly drains your emotional energy, quietly and persistently. How they manipulate you without you noticing. Evil people don't usually come at you directly. They don't yell, they don't insult you, they don't start obvious arguments. They do it in much more subtle ways. They say things that make you rethink yourself. They make you feel guilty without directly saying you're wrong. They ask soft questions like, "Are you sure you can handle that? Do you think people liked how you did that?" And you start to question yourself. They don't need to control you with actions. They plant the seed of doubt and step back, watching you slowly shrink on your own. What's the result? You begin to lose trust in your intuition. Feel the need to get their approval before making decisions. Think you're being too sensitive whenever you feel something is off. Try to please them to avoid feeling guilty. You're no longer living as your strong, independent self. You're stuck inside their invisible influence, where your energy keeps fading and your self-worth gets thinner every day. I've been through this. I had a colleague like that. At first, he seemed insightful, caring, and experienced. I'd share my plans, ask for his advice, and feel happy when he approved. But slowly, the compliments became constructive feedback, always wrapped with the message that I wasn't quite good enough. He'd often bring up small mistakes I had made, and then I started fearing mistakes. I feared his disappointment. I started working to earn his approval, not for myself anymore. I was losing my strength, and I only realized it when a close friend told me, "Every time you talk to that guy, you come back quiet, drained, and more confused." Marcus Aurelius once said, "If something disturbs your mind, you need to examine that." That quote helped me return to my intuition, and when I looked closely, I realized I'm being drained daily by someone who acts like they're helping me. How do you protect yourself? When you feel tired, confused, or unsettled after being around someone, don't rush to blame yourself. Pause and ask, am I trying too hard just to be accepted? Do I feel like I need permission to be myself? Do I feel drained after our conversations? If the answer is yes, that's a big red flag. And noticing it doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're waking up. What does Stoicism teach us? Epictetus once said, "No one can hurt you unless you give them permission." That doesn't mean you have to become numb. It means you need clear boundaries between your energy and other people's energy. Hold on to your clarity, awareness, and right not to feel guilty for walking away from a toxic space. To summarize sign number 1, evil people don't usually attack you openly. They make you doubt, confuse you, and quietly drain your energy. And when you no longer trust yourself, they start to gain control. When you begin to doubt yourself, lose confidence, and feel exhausted, something is out of balance. But here's the danger. That imbalance doesn't usually come from someone who is loud, rude, or toxic. Instead, it often comes from someone who made you feel safe at first. Someone who speaks gently, shows up right on time, gives advice, attention, and praise. You think it's kindness, but it might be a perfectly crafted mask designed to lower your guard. That's when charm becomes a weapon. And if you don't catch it early, you start to rely on it instead of trusting yourself. Charm is often rooted in manipulative intent when it doesn't come from true kindness. Sign number 2, charm is a mask, not kindness. Some people enter your life like a breath of fresh air. They speak easily, look warm, and know what to say at the right time. You feel special around them, heard, understood, and you rarely question their intent. They're charming, but not romantically. The kind of charm makes you want to trust them instantly. That's what makes it dangerous. Charm is not always a sign of goodness. Remember this. Genuine sincerity doesn't need effort, but charm with an agenda is always calculated. Evil people never show up wearing their true faces. They come in as the perfect version of what you think you need. Always available at just the right moment, always praising you when you accomplish something, always listening, nodding, sharing, like they're the missing piece you've been looking for. And that's when you start to lower your guard. You open up. You begin to hand them influence over your emotions. So where's the trap? Genuinely good people never make you question your worth. But evil people know, to control someone, you must first make them like you. So they overpraise you, so you crave their validation. Agree with you, not because they understand, but because they need your trust. Make you feel like they're the only one who truly gets you. And then one day, the shift begins. From the understanding listener to the one who corrects you. From praise to warnings. From your safe place to someone you fear disappointing. I once had someone like this in my life. A friend who constantly texted me at just the right moment. Who always supported my work. Who made me feel I was better when they were around. But over time, I began to notice. When I grew closer to others, they became distant. When I made decisions without including them, they seemed disappointed. And when I stopped depending on them, they started to criticize. Softly, subtly, but just enough to make me feel guilty. That's when I realized they weren't charming to be close. They were lovely to take up space in my heart, not to be there, but to be in control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "Your soul becomes dyed with the color of your thoughts. So let clarity and honesty guide your mind." Toxic people make you think about them constantly, not because they inspire you, but because you're being emotionally pulled into a cycle of dependence. How to recognize toxic charm. Be alert when someone makes you feel special a little too fast. acts like they understand you more than you understand yourself, frequently says things like, "Only I get you," "Other people don't deserve you," "Don't trust anyone but me." That's not love. That's a trap, placing you in a space where they become the center of your trust and you feel like there's no one else to turn to. So what should you do? Stoicism doesn't teach you to be paranoid. It teaches you to be clear-eyed. Epictetus once said, "If someone causes you to lose your self-mastery, they are not someone to keep close." You don't need to confront them. You need to observe their actions instead of listening to their words. A truly good person will never try to make you feel special. They accept you as you are. Never want you dependent. They encourage your freedom and growth. Never get jealous of your other relationships. They celebrate when you build more good connections. To summarize, sign number 2. Toxic people often use charm as a mask. They don't come to connect. They come to control. Their charm blinds you to the red flags. And once you become dependent, they start controlling you through your own emotions. Charm is a mask, and that mask doesn't always fall off right away. Some people can perform kindness for a very long time, as long as they still control you through the trust they carefully planted. But eventually, charm is no longer enough to keep you. That's when they reach for a more potent weapon, one that allows them to change how you see the truth, to make you question what you see and hear. And that weapon is deception. Not the clumsy kind of lying, but the kind that's built carefully, woven with half-truths and blurred lines. The kind that makes you lose track of what's real. This is a deeper level of manipulation, where they don't just control your feelings, they start to rewrite your entire view of the world. Sign number 3, they twist the truth and lie without remorse. Toxic people don't just make you doubt yourself. They don't just charm you with sweet words. They go further. They start rewriting the story, the very story you're living in. You're no longer sure if you heard them correctly. You're not sure what's real and what you imagined. And once you begin doubting your memory, perception, and logic, they've already won. To them, lying isn't a mistake, it's a tool. Toxic people don't lie out of fear or insecurity. They lie to control. And they lie without hesitation, without even a hint of guilt. They lie to gain an advantage. They lie to smear others without getting caught. They lie to make you feel like you misunderstood, you overreacted, or you made up the problem. These aren't innocent lies. These are tactics, a system, a method of manipulation called gaslighting. Gaslighting, when the truth is intentionally twisted, you may have heard this word before, and it's not some trendy pop psych term. Gaslighting is when someone constantly denies what you know to be true, making you question your memory, emotions, and judgment. Examples: you clearly remember them saying something. They insist, "I never said that." You feel hurt by how they treated you. They reply, "You're being way too sensitive." You confront them with suspicion. They say, "I've always been honest, you misunderstand me." Little by little, you lose touch with your intuition and your sense of reality. A former boss once gaslighted me. He was sharp, charismatic, and polished in public. But in private meetings, he would constantly contradict himself, change decisions without notice, then blame me for not understanding. When I spoke up, he smiled and said, "I never said that. Maybe you misremembered. We need to improve our communication." Eventually, I started bringing a notebook to meetings, not to work more efficiently, but to protect myself from someone who could twist the truth without a trace. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If something is not right, don't say it. If something is not true, don't do it." But toxic people don't live by that. They live by stories they create. And if you're unaware, you'll become a side character in a script they've written for their control. How to spot a chronic liar and reality manipulator. Be especially cautious when someone frequently changes their words and says, "You remembered wrong." Justifies illogical behavior with calm, rational tones. Always has a story to defend themselves, even when you have clear evidence. Makes you feel like you're overreacting, even when your response is fully justified. This type of person doesn't live in truth. They live in control. So how should you respond? Stoicism doesn't ask you to argue. It doesn't ask you to beg for recognition. It teaches you to return to the simple truth. Epictetus once taught, "Just because many people believe something is true doesn't make it accurate. Observe, analyze, and stand with the truth, even if you stand alone." So no, you don't need to debate. You don't need to convince them. You need to hold on to your clarity and step out of their spiral. Take notes. Listen to your intuition. Trust what you see, hear, and feel, instead of being talked into believing you're wrong. To summarize, sign 3-0. Toxic people don't just lie. They twist reality to control how you feel about yourself. They don't need violence. They don't need to shout. They need you to believe you're not clear-headed enough to see the truth. And that's when you start to lose your freedom. Once they've made you doubt your memory, your clarity, and your emotions, who else can you trust but them? That's when they take the next step. They cut you off from anyone who might help you wake up. And here's the cruel part. They don't do it with force. They do it with concerned words, subtle looks, and sweet manipulation like, "No one else understands you. Only I do." That leads us to sign. They quietly isolate you from those who genuinely care about you. Sign 4. They isolate you from people who love you. Have you ever felt like you were slowly drifting away from your family, close friends, or the people who used to be your support system? But you couldn't figure out why. You're still you, they're still them. But somehow the distance grows. Conversations become rare. You stop sharing. And one day you realize you're alone. If you're feeling that way, be careful, because you might be getting isolated intentionally. How toxic people separate you from your support system. Toxic people understand one simple truth. You're only strong when good people surround you. So to control you, they don't need to lock you up. They need to break your trust in everyone else. They will suggest that your friends are using you, tell you your family doesn't understand you like I do, act annoyed whenever you get too close to others, slowly makes you feel unsafe opening up to anyone else. And the scary part? It all happens gradually, sweetly, logically. You don't feel forced. You start to think, maybe I should stay closer to this person. Maybe those other people don't get me. And then you pull away on your own. I lost 3 good friends because of one toxic relationship. At the time, I was close to someone I truly believed got me. They often shared eye-opening stories like, "I think your friend's been talking behind your back. Did you know that? Your family always pressures you. They don't respect your choices. I hate to say this, but I think someone's taking advantage of you." I listened, and I started looking at my friends with suspicion. I kept my distance. I stayed out of drama. I told myself, this is simpler. But when I hit real hardship, only one person was still around, the very one who had isolated me. And when I finally dared to say no, they were the first to walk away. That's when it hit me. They had successfully cut me from everyone who might have helped me wake up. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "We are not made to live apart. Our strength lies in connection." Toxic people don't want you to be strong, and they know to make you weak, all they have to do is make you lonely. Signs you're being subtly isolated. You hesitate to share personal things with your family. You avoid meeting old friends, even though you used to love spending time with them. You keep hearing snide remarks or persuasive comments that others can't be trusted. You start thinking, only this person truly understands me. Stop and ask yourself, who made me start doubting everyone else except them? What does Stoicism teach us about isolation? Stoicism doesn't teach you to be cold or detached. It reminds us, true happiness comes from a healthy connection, not emotional dependence. Seneca once said, "None of us is strong enough to do without a companion, but the right companion lifts you. They don't drag you down. So don't let anyone convince you that you only need me. No, you need people who love you sincerely, not people who need to control you to feel secure." To summarize, sign number 4, toxic people don't ban you from talking to others. They plant doubt. They don't isolate you by force. They get you to do it yourself. And when you stand alone, you become the easiest target. Because now, there's no one to share your thoughts with. No one to help you fact-check the lies. No one to keep you grounded. And that's when they stop pretending. They stop faking kindness. And they begin to show something darker, a quiet joy in your suffering. That brings us to one of the most chilling signs of all. Sign number 5. They feel satisfaction in your pain. Someone who hurts you might be careless. Someone who makes you suffer might not understand. But someone who secretly smiles when you fall, that's real cruelty. Sounds dramatic? It's not. It happens more often than you think. And the scary part is, it's not always obvious. They don't yell. They don't hit. They don't make you bleed. They just find silent satisfaction whenever you're upset, failing, or overwhelmed. Common behaviors of people who enjoy your pain. They listen to your bad news and stay strangely quiet. They fake comfort with phrases like, "See, I told you this would happen. You should have listened to me earlier." They nod and text someone else immediately, like nothing happened. You don't feel comforted. You feel like your pain has just become their little pleasure. I went through this, and it took me a long time to name the feeling. It was an old friend. I used to share everything with them, my wins and my failures. But every time something bad happened, instead of comforting me, they always started with, "Told you so. You thought you were better than others? Guess not." And they'd always finish with, "Not judging, just saying, I knew this would happen." It sounded normal. But every time I felt smaller after we talked. One day, I accidentally saw the messages they sent to someone else, just minutes after I'd opened up about a personal struggle. The text said, "Knew it, thought they were all that. Serves them right." And when I confronted them, they said, "Well, I wasn't wrong, was I? Why are you so sensitive?" That's when I realized not everyone who stands beside you in pain is there to help you heal. Some are there to watch you break. Seneca once wrote, "No one is more miserable than the one who feeds off the pain of others." Because that person has abandoned their humanity, fueling their ego on someone else's suffering. Why do they do it? Toxic people can't stand your strength, your confidence, your light, your success. It threatens them. But they won't say it. They wait. They wait for you to stumble, to fail, to fall apart, because that's when they can finally lift their heads without doing the work. They have to stand on your pain. How to recognize this kind of person? They're never truly happy for your success. They act awkward or detached. They love spreading stories of others' mistakes while pretending they're being helpful. Their advice sounds wise, but it always leaves you feeling smaller. They're there when you're weak, but rarely show up when you shine. Stoicism doesn't teach revenge. It teaches clarity and elevation. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If you see someone who takes joy in another's pain, that person is trapped in a deep pit. You do not need to jump in after them. You don't need to get angry. You need to walk away from their toxic energy. Respect yourself and give your energy to those who value it." Toxic people don't always attack you. Sometimes they watch you hurt and feel pleasure in your struggle. And when your pain becomes their joy, that's how you know you're standing next to someone dangerous. And then, when you're hurt enough, isolated enough, exhausted enough, you begin to wake up. You realize they weren't genuine, that they've repeatedly let you fall. So you speak up, gently, sincerely. You don't accuse. You ask for an explanation, maybe even a small sign of regret. And what do you get? A smirk, a shrug, and a line that sounds harmless, but cuts deep. "It wasn't my fault." That's when everything flips. They turn you into the problem. They say you overreacted. They blame you for not understanding, not listening, not being fair. From the victim, you become the one at fault. And that leads us into the next unmistakable sign. They always shift the blame and never truly take responsibility. Sign number 6. They always shift the blame and never take responsibility. When you finally speak up, when you gather the courage to say, "I'm hurt," when you hope for an apology, or even just a small sign of accountability, that's the moment their real face begins to show. You won't hear, "I'm sorry." You won't see an acknowledgement. Instead, you become the problem. They are masters at flipping the script. If you cry, they say, "You're overreacting." If you're sad, they say, "That's just how you chose to feel." If you pull away, they sigh, "I've done everything for you." And somehow, in the end, it's all your fault. You're too sensitive. You're the one who can't handle things. You're always the one who sees problems everywhere. And them, In their story, they just tried their best, but got mistreated. This is the art of role switching, from perpetrator to victim. You know you were hurt. You know they were wrong. But through their words, explanations, comparisons, and cherry-picked logic, you start to wonder, maybe I am too sensitive, maybe I did something wrong and didn't realize it. That's when you start apologizing for your feelings. And them, they never say, I'm sorry. They say, I did it because I care. If you weren't like that, I wouldn't have had to do it. I was trapped in that exact loop, and it took me a year to break free. I was in a relationship where anytime I gave feedback, calmly, kindly, they'd become silent, withdrawn, or say that I was hurting them. Every time I found myself comforting them, apologizing, soothing the situation, and always ending up feeling like I was the one to blame. Until one day I realized, someone who truly loves you would never make you feel guilty for being hurt. Marcus Aurelius once said, no one can pull you away from truth unless you allow it. And the more you stay calm, forgiving, and peace-seeking, the more toxic people will use that to avoid the truth altogether. Why do toxic people never admit fault? Because to admit they were wrong would mean looking at themselves honestly, facing the pain they caused, tearing down the perfect image they've carefully crafted. And that's too costly for someone living through ego. They would rather twist reality than face a flaw. They'd rather lose you than lose the role they're playing. How to tell if you're being subtly blamed? Whenever you express a concern, you're told you're too emotional. You find yourself apologizing for your genuine feelings. Even when the facts are clear, they change the subject, leaving you confused and off balance. You often walk away from conversations thinking, something's wrong with me. What does Stoicism teach us? Stoicism doesn't teach you to win every argument. It teaches you this: hold on to your truth, even when others deny it. You don't need to force anyone to admit what they did. You need to see clearly who always dodges responsibility, who constantly plays the victim, and who keeps making you feel like you're the problem. And then you take a step back, calmly, not out of anger, not with explanations, but with clarity. Because you are not here to do other people's growing for them. Toxic people don't apologize, they justify. They don't take ownership. They deflect. They don't change. They make you think that you are the one who needs to change. And if you don't realize this soon, you'll live trapped in the feeling that you're never enough. After every argument, you're the one apologizing. After every hurt, you're the one calming things down. After every effort to hold a relationship together, you're the one reaching out. You've tried patience. You've tried kindness. You've forgiven, even when there was no apology. You waited, hoping they would reflect, regret, and finally change. But that day never came. Instead, you saw them move through life unbothered, still explaining everything with their logic, still convinced they did nothing wrong. And finally, you begin to understand. The problem isn't that you weren't forgiving enough. The problem is they never had the capacity for remorse. It's not that they didn't know they hurt you. They knew. They didn't care. And that leads us to the final, coldest, and most dangerous sign. Sign 7. They feel no remorse and have no intention to change. Some people hurt you and later realize it. Some people make mistakes and find their way back. And then there are people who feel nothing, no guilt, no regret, no second thoughts, and definitely no remorse. Their coldness isn't accidental, it's intentional. You hope they'll say, I'm sorry. You wait for a moment of reflection, a pause, a look, a breath of responsibility, just something real. But it never comes. Instead, they sit there. They explain, they redirect, or worse, they smile. Not a mocking smile, but one of unsettling calm. I once faced someone like this, and the most haunting part wasn't what they did. It was what they didn't do. I was hurt deeply by someone very close. When I said, I'm in pain, they asked, pain about what? When I explained what was wrong, they said, I didn't do anything wrong. When I asked, can you see I'm hurting? They replied, you chose to feel that way? That's not on me. I froze. That was the moment I understood. It's not that they don't know what they're doing, it's that they know and don't care. No desire to change, no thought that they ever should. Seneca once wrote, "There is nothing more frightening than a soul that has grown numb to what is right." Toxic people like this don't change, not because they can't, but because they see no reason to. And that's the greatest danger of staying close to them. It's about this as additional forces, and you're selfish for speaking up. Water feel asking too harsh for asking for decency. You ought to think you're immature because grown-ups shouldn't expect others to change. And so you start changing yourself, march to adapt to their numbness. You can become quieter, skillness, softer, until one day you don't notice out of yourself anymore. Why don't they feel remorse? Because they live by ego, not conscience. Because they've learned whoever never admits fault controls the story. Because every apology to them is a defeat in the power game. They don't apologize because they believe it makes them look weak. They don't change because the way they are still gives them control over you. The most evident signs of someone who lacks remorse: after all your sadness, pain, and tears, they've never once said, "I'm sorry." After every time they hurt you, they only say, "You made me feel bad," and when you finally walk away, they don't even try to stop you. Not because they're strong, but because they don't see you as important enough to regret losing. What does Stoicism teach us here? Epictetus once said, "Don't expect the impossible from others, expect clarity from yourself." You don't need to find remorse in a heart that feels nothing. You need to look at the truth and choose to protect your dignity, not because they're not wrong, but because you refuse to become numb like they are. To summarize, sign number 7, toxic people never change because they don't think they're wrong. They feel no remorse because their hearts don't move at the pain of others. And if you don't walk away, they'll teach you how to be numb to yourself. When you realize they feel no regret, no guilt, no reflection, that's not just the end of a bad behavior. That's the conclusion of a person's character. Not a moment of weakness, not a heated mistake, but a pattern, cold, calculated, emotionless. You've carried the pain. You've questioned yourself. You've endured, hoped, and forgiven. And now, it's time to look back not with emotion, but with truth. No more denial. No more excuses. No more telling yourself maybe one day they'll change. It's time to see clearly, to recognize the 7 evident signs that you're standing next to a toxic person. Not to blame, not to judge, but to make a choice, protect your peace, or keep losing yourself. Now take a step back and look at the whole picture. No more emotions, no more second guessing, only clarity, the very thing a Stoic seeks in the middle of chaos. 1. They make you feel guilty for your emotions. You're not allowed to be sad, not allowed to speak up. Whenever you express how you feel, they call you too sensitive or dramatic. They shut down your emotions, then manipulate them like you are the problem. 2. They control you through silence or negative emotion. No talking, no eye contact, no warmth. Their silence isn't peace, it's punishment. Anytime you don't do what they want, you're exiled through cold, calculated indifference. 3. They're not happy when you're happy, and they're not sad when you're hurting. When you succeed, they get awkward. When you're in pain, they seem calm, almost relieved, because your light makes them feel small. They're only comfortable when you're down. 4. They fake care to gather your weaknesses. They don't come to help, they come to collect. The things you share honestly, they remember them. And one day, they'll use them against you. Their kindness, just a disguise. 5. They quietly enjoy your pain. They don't hurt you directly. They stand nearby, watching. But their eyes light up every time you fall, because your failure makes them feel taller. 6. They never admit they're wrong, only shift the blame. Every argument, you're the problem. They spin every situation, you misunderstood, you overreacted, you're too emotional. They're masters at guilt tripping and reality bending. 7. They feel no remorse and never change. No apologies, no reflection, no sense of wrongdoing. They live as if you are the broken one, and the longer you wait for them to change, the more you wear yourself down. And here's the final truth. Toxic people don't always scream, cheat, or hit. Sometimes they're just the ones who make you lose yourself, bit by bit. Every look, every word, every moment they make you go silent, slowly chips away at your self-worth. Stoicism doesn't teach you to run away from toxic people. It teaches you to recognize them early, because once you recognize the truth, you can stop trying to rescue a soul that has no desire to be saved. You don't need to fight. You need to withdraw calmly and with strength. Don't let your soul be tainted by standing too close to a polluted mind. Marcus Aurelius. Now you hold a map. 7 signs, 7 warning bells, 7 reasons to start choosing again. Stay or step away. Stay silent or speak your truth. Endure or live aligned with your values. I once believed that if I were kind enough, patient enough, forgiving enough, anyone could change. But life and Stoic philosophy taught me the opposite. Not everyone wants to change. Not everyone deserves the best version of you. There are people who, no matter how much you give, will always take more. No matter how much you yield, will always push further. No matter how much it hurts you, will always remain indifferent. The most crucial thing is to recognize early. Not to hate, not to retaliate, but to protect your energy, your peace, and your self-respect. You don't need to defeat toxic people. You need to exit their game. When you refuse to react, you take away the manipulator's power. Epictetus. What is the right action here? Keep your distance, not out of hate, but self-respect. Observe calmly, because now you see clearly. Rebuild your sense of self, so no one can make you doubt your worth again. Remember this. Toxic people don't need to stay to keep hurting you. As long as you don't leave, they've already won. So rise, not loudly, not to prove anything. Quietly step away and live a life where you never have to apologize for feeling. If this video helped awaken a truth inside you, if you've stayed silent too long in a toxic relationship, if you're standing at the edge, choosing whether to stay or leave a comment, share your story. Someone out there might need your courage to wake up finally. And if you believe this message matters, share this video with at least one person you care about. Subscribe to Sovereign Stoic for more grounded wisdom from Stoic philosophy, for those choosing clarity in a noisy world. You can't change toxic people, but you can stop letting them hurt you. That's your power, that's your freedom, and it's been yours all along.